So good morning everyone. Here is my project. My project is about credit card fraud detection. It means detecting the fraudulent transaction from a bank or a ATM. For a bank or ATM. Okay, let's go here. So basically my code explains, that is the first line explains import numpy as np, that is basically we'll be importing the required libraries for this project. So I just imported numpy pandas, and also from sklearn model selection I just imported train and splits for data to train and split, and also I just imported logistic regression here because since it is a numerical, if you see the fraudulent transaction, all it's taken place in a numerical regression and decimal regressions. So I just took logistic regression here, and also to know the accuracy I just imported accuracy score. So coming to next line, I just imported some data of 2 days of transaction. It means I just took it from Kaggle website. It is about 2 days of transaction. So dataset is here. I just link the dataset here, and the next line is credit card data head. This code explains the first line of those transaction. It just gives the first 5 transaction of this dataset. It means here you can see the time v1, v2, v2 up to v28, and also it gives amounts. Here the amount describes in dollars, and also it gives classes. The classes are nothing but zeros and ones. So basically zeros means it's a legit transaction where there is no fraudulent transaction is taken place. And also coming to next line, it calls like credit card dot tail. It means it will be giving last 5 transaction, and also here it's here the amount also it's like in dollars, and also the class is here is also 0. So basically zeros means digit transaction. Coming to next line, a credit card data dot information. This line basically gives you more information about those transaction. It means whether it is a null value or non-null value, and also it gives a data type. Here the data types is integer 64. So here you can see here the extra data are columns, whether it is non-null or null transaction, and also it gives count. It also the non-null, and also the data types, and those these are entries. And coming to next line, it gives those values. It means how many transactions are there in this transaction data set, and also whether it is legit transaction or fraudulent transaction. So here you can see the class is zeros and 1, and the count is 2,84,315. It means 2,84,315 are zeros. It means it's all those 2 lakh change transaction are legit transaction, and for 492 transaction are fraudulent transaction. Okay, it just gives separate transaction. It means the fraudulent transaction and also legit transaction will be separated, and gives the count of this transaction. Next, here you can see we are just to further moving on to this code and project. We have to access some we have to give, and also we have to access more liable codes. So I just given zeros as legit transaction and 1 as a fraudulent transaction. So I just assigning those to get more clear to this project. I just assigning those numbers to a variables. It means zeros to legit transaction, 1 as a fraudulent transaction. To further, just we use print and legit.shape. It means it gives a dimensional and also visualizations, and also count if you use shapes on those transactions and datasets from the dataset. And next you can see legit.amount.describe. So basically this amount.describes gives you more information about the dataset. It means if you give legit, so separately about legit it will give more information about legit transactions. Here you can see count, mean, standard, minimum, and 25 of the transaction is are 5 the 5 transaction are 25 above, and 22 transaction of 50 is above, and 77 transaction of 75% above. Here you can see maximum, and also here data types is float 64. Coming to next, here you can see same as legit transaction amount describe. It gives fraud transactions amount description, same as amount like count, mean, transaction it is nothing but just giving you the information, more information, deep information, and the maximum and average informations about those transaction. And coming to next, you can see data group by. So here, this is what the main things happens. I mean, like this difference between the rigid transaction and fraudulent transactions can be guessed, and we can separate it and also take average by this information. Here you can see those difference between those classes, time, and also v1 v2 transaction, and also you can see large number of difference between those two transactions. So keeping this as a data, here you can see we can move on to further in this project. You can see legit here this line. So if you see here the amount between and those difference between the transaction of legend transaction and fraud transaction, it's like vast. Okay, so we just need to give like 90% of accuracy in this project, and also we need to find which are those fraudulent transaction and legit transaction from this data sets. And and also we find the accuracy and give accuracy, best accuracies on this project. So since the difference between, here you can see the difference between, here you can see the difference between legit transaction and fraudulent transaction is vast. It means if you see class 0 is of 28 lakhs and class 1 is of 492, so the difference between this is vast. So I just do sampling here. So since the data is unbalanced, I'm just moving on to next process called sampling. Sampling means I just take, here you can listen carefully, I just take 492 of legit transaction from this 2 lakh data, and I just concatenate with fraudulent transaction of 492. So simply I'll be, since the difference are vast, like the amount transaction are vast difference, so I just take legit transaction of 492 transaction from those legit transaction, and I just add with 492 of fraudulent transaction. Okay, so after concatenate with this, here you can see same new creating a new data set as legit and fraud transaction, and here you can see tail, and you can see it. As I said in first, it is a first and last 5 data sets, and I just did my concatenation. So whether the concatenation is perfectly done, to check those concatenation, we just use new dataset class and value, and it will give count. So here you can see 492 of legit transaction and also 492 of fraudulent transaction, and just concatenated with these both transaction, and you can see mean here. So concatenating by this and just group by and giving this mean, here you can see class 0s and 1, and you can see those difference is like similar. Yeah, you can see before doing sampling, data sampling, there was vast difference, and after doing those sampling you can see some little amount of difference. So 492 of fraudulent transaction and 492 of legit transaction I just concatenated, and I just given a mean here. So at next you can go to train and testing dataset. So I just given x as a new dataset and y as a new dataset classes. So these classes are separated and just gave to a new variable called y. So by printing of x, it will give this transaction. It means these are the training transaction, like it will be giving in 9 rows and columns, like 984 rows into and also 30 columns. So the transaction will be printed as new data set, and those are just given these classes, and these classes are just assigned to y, and while printing on y we will be getting those labels of those classes. So these are the transaction of classes. By printing x we can view that, and by printing y we can see those labels of those classes. And next I just given x train and x set and y train and y set test and train splits. Here you can see 80% of those data sets are just trained, and 20% of those data have been tested. So basically, if you see, out of 984 transaction, 787 are testing dataset, training dataset, and 197 are testing dataset. Coming to next, I just using logistic regression. Since it's a decimal and numerical regression, you can just use logistic regression. And next, coming to next line, here you can see, but here you can see, yeah, these are the classes, and these classes for this representative classes, we have representative labels. So the data, each data set has a class, and those classes have respective labels. And after coming to, as I said, training set and data set, we just have 984 of data training sets totally of data sets, and we can here you can see 787 of training set in the out. And next, out of 984 data set, we are just having 20% of testing. So that testing counts of 197 of data sets. And you can see at next line, you can go for the training set. Since we have just gone through training and testing, here first we can check the accuracy of the training dataset. Here, giving this code, we are getting like 93% of accuracy on training dataset, and also giving up this code, we are getting 91% of testing dataset, that 20% of testing dataset. That's it. So basically, this project is about credit card fraud detection, to detect the fraudulent transaction of those particular data sets and particular days which our transaction has been taken place. So using this, we can find out those fraudulent transaction easily, and will be useful for people to find out this and lost monies, and also find out, and it will be useful for banks to find out those fraudulent transactions and move on furtherly. So thank you.